All right, man, so here's the issue. What you do in the weight room right now doesn't transfer to your swing or the field. And if you're looking to finally transfer the hard work from training into your skills, it comes down to this one concept. But why even listen to me? Because I have hella proof that what I'm about to talk about works extremely well. We can look at my guy Noah. He's up 7 EV. It's the biggest jump in EV he's ever had in his life. He's up to about 97 miles an hour for his EV there. My man Julian got up to 101 off the tee. It's a +8 EV gain. Used to be sitting at about 93 miles an hour. My man Dan Price is also up 12 EV from our guidance. My guy Ryan is also up 10 EV. He hit 101 off the tee as well. Jace is up 12. I could really go on and on. All these guys are up double-digit EV. And the exact concept that I'm about to explain to you guys is exactly what I coach these athletes inside my Close the Gap protocol, and we do average +8 EV gains for a reason. Now that you know this works, let's talk about the concept that I refer to as the transfer protocol. And if you do this, you'll never be stuck wondering, why doesn't my work actually transfer into my metrics? And it comes down to 5 simple stages that I'm going to easily break down so you can start implementing this today. And the last stage is the most important, so stay until the end so you can actually get an edge on your competition. 99% of high school athletes do skip stage 5. So here is the transfer protocol. Now, your calendar year is broken up into different time periods. This is known as periodization. Think of an arrow, okay? And how that arrow represents a full year, a full calendar year. As you can see here, from January to December. Now, dissect that arrow into 5 different sections, okay? So you can see here, I'm dissecting this arrow into 5 stages. Most commonly, we see periodization structured around the season. So the arrows can easily be labeled like this, where stage 1 is preseason, stage 2 is season, stage 3 is postseason, stage 4 is off-season, and stage 5 is late off-season. So with that being said, each stage actually requires a new training method, stimulus, and approach. I mean, just think about how things change throughout the year for you in general. Like, your priorities change. The season, is either approaching or you are leaving the season. Your strength changes, your power changes, your weight is changing, school is changing, your mental health and your physical health are also factors that change. It would be pretty crazy to keep doing the same thing over and over throughout the whole course of a year, given that all those factors are different. It's like math class, okay? You know how at the beginning of the school year, like the first week is pretty much just review from the year prior? Like, you're plotting line graphs and doing easy calculations. It's stuff you did in middle school. So let's just say I'm taking calculus, right? And at the end of the year, we have a big final that has the hardest concepts in calculus. But I kept charting line graphs and doing all the basic stuff from week 1 up until the test. You're gonna fail because you didn't prep or give yourself the right training up until the test, and you're doing the same thing the whole year, okay? In baseball, your season is the test, okay? So don't plot line graphs throughout the year expecting to hit bombs, AKA pass your test. Your training must improve, adapt, and give you what you need. And this is the part that no high school player understands. Because as you get closer to season, everything changes. Your transfer leak could be at any of these 5 stages right here, okay? So let's just dive in and talk about the postseason stage, which is stage 3. Now, the main goal of your postseason stage, okay, is gonna be to recover. And the biggest reason you're not transferring through this stage is because you have no recovery plan. And the thing you should incorporate now, or the biggest difference maker you can incorporate into your training during this time, is a reassessment week. Okay, so at this time in the timeline, you've just played a full season. It is time to rest the nervous system and take a few weeks off, okay? From there, you need to retest all of your numbers to see where your new deficiency is. If you do this incorrectly, you could accidentally knock the first domino over that will ruin the next 4 stages. So if you don't reset your nervous system, nothing is going to transfer into your swing because you are too fatigued. Now, imagine if you just took your calculus test, you turned it into your teacher, you took a deep breath, you thought it was all over, and then your teacher said, you still have 2 more tests to take right now. It's exactly what you're doing if you don't actually have a recovery plan during this time of the year. Okay, so let's move on to stage 4. This is the off season. Now, your main goal here is to improve at your deficiencies. So get better at your lowest hanging fruit. What are the 1 or 2 things that are really holding you back in your game? The biggest reason you're not transferring through this phase is because you have no training structure. Nothing proven to actually move the needle. And the biggest difference maker for you is going to be incorporating the triphasic training approach. So this is the time to get to work. Once you've got an idea of your deficiencies during your retest, then you need to use the triphasic training plan to attack them with the most proven structure out there. Just to kind of boil down the triphasic training approach to simple terms, month 1 is your eccentric training block. You're gonna take 3 to 5 seconds on the way down for all of your exercises. Month 2 is your isometric block. This is where you're gonna pause for 3 to 5 seconds during your exercises. And month 3 is your concentric block, where you're gonna move as quickly as possible. Now, there is a lot that goes into the triphasic training approach. It's what I use with all of my athletes inside the Close the Gap protocol, and it's why we get the results we do. I've also used it as a college strength conditioning coach with a collegiate baseball program. So simply, there would just be a lot of information for me to throw in this video, and I actually have made a full separate YouTube video on the triphasic training approach, and I will throw that on the screen right now. So go watch that and then come back to this video and finish up. But if you don't use triphasic training, you will not reach your potential physically. So going back to the calculus analogy, think about trying to take your calculus test without a study guide. Like, sure, it's possible, right? You could pass, but it's a way less effective alternative. You making your own training plan is the same thing. Like, you can make your own, it's just gonna suck, bro. Now, specifically in triphasic training, we deliberately train transferability, and we do that through these methods. And the first one is patterning. So you should have the same movements in the weight room that you're going to mimic out there on the field. A really common example that I like to use with my athletes is a reverse lunge, because it mimics sprinting mechanics super well. We also want to have a rotational emphasis during our training. Obviously, hitting is a rotational exercise itself, so we have to train that in the weight room. We also need to train the swing in the weight room. So our swing actually has eccentric, isometric, and concentric movements inside of it. So the triphasic training approach perfectly coincides with the swing. I actually have another YouTube video that goes over exactly what I mean by that as well. There's also a lot that goes into that, so click this video on the screen right now if you are curious on how we actually train the swing in the weight room, and then come back to this video after. We also want to improve central nervous system efficiency, okay? So we want to move fast, and we also want to improve the signal our brain gives our muscle. So when you say quick twitch, that's really just a scientific way of explaining it. Now, without an effective off-season training approach, it's an uphill battle. Honestly, dude, you're screwed. Okay, now that that's understood, let's talk about stage 5, which is the late off-season. The main goal here is to just get super powerful, and the biggest reason you could not transfer during this phase is because you take training like an athlete to the extreme and you have no base underneath you. The biggest difference maker here, again, is going to be triphasic training. So at this point, through triphasic training, you need to have built a solid strength and muscle mass base, and it's got to be ready to start becoming the most dominant version of yourself. And this is where so many players get stuck. They just think, I'll throw more med balls, I'll move faster in the weight room, I'll start jumping and sprinting and whatever other BS you guys tell yourself. But you likely have a very weak base underneath you, mostly because you didn't train through triphasic training. And if you just train like an athlete all the time, you're trying to move a Honda with a Lamborghini engine. Brother, the Honda is going to fucking break. Here, during the concentric phase, we should be training for power and power expression. So once we have the base, okay, hear me, we have to have the base first. Then we can start incorporating med ball work, accommodating resistance, Olympic lifts, and high intent, high fatiguing exercises. At this point, we also need to start thinking about the mental game. We got to start putting healthy habits in place and developing a relationship with your mental performance coach, as these things are going to take a massive priority in the next phases. Which leads me to stage 1, which is preseason, and the main goal here is to compete. And the biggest reason you're not transferring through this phase is because you're training like you did in phases 2 through 5. And the biggest difference maker here is energy conservation or energy management. This is the best phase, I'm not gonna lie. You can practically smell the season around the corner. However, high school athletes royally mess this up. They do the same type of training they've done all year. They just gain strength, train like an athlete, blah, blah, blah. But during this phase, you must compete and put a massive emphasis on your mental game. You should also be doing more game simulated activities. You should be challenging your friends or teammates to competitions like races, lifting, or even hitting. You should start running outside, and you should speak to your mental performance coach to come up with systems before the season so you have something to fall back on when you start. Patterning in the weight room also becomes even more important, and everything should simulate game patterns. Start hitting in the batter's box more, running out on the field, things like that. This is the single biggest thing players are missing when it comes to transferring during or right before their season. And also, during this phase, you're going to be expending a lot of energy. You're super active. It's important to stay fresh every single day by going to bed and waking up at the exact same time each day, getting 8 to 9 hours of rest and dialed in nutrition, and you should have about 60% of your diet being carbs. And finally, stage 2 is the season time, and the main goal is to stay sharp mentally and physically. And the biggest reason you're not transferring during the season is you probably stopped training and you have no mental performance coach. The biggest difference maker here by far is going to be in-season programming. So imagine the calculus test was in 2 weeks, but during those 2 weeks, you just stopped studying completely out of nowhere for no reason. How prepared do you think you're going to be for that test? And how much do you think you're going to forget when it comes to actually taking that test on test day? If you don't train during season, the same thing will happen and you will lose your progress. But I'm too tired, I'm too fatigued. You say that because your idea of training is stuck in the off season, which just proves my point. Training looks entirely different during the season. It doesn't expend as much energy, load the joints, or take as much time. Your concept of training has to change during season. The biggest unlock here that will ensure you transfer from weight room to the field is an in-season training plan and a mental performance coach. When is the last time, honestly, you went a full season without a single slump, negative thought, or a dip in confidence? Never, bro. You've never done that. You need somebody in your corner who's actually been through the same struggles as you and isn't your hitting coach that you see once a week. Because what happens when you go 0 for 4 on Tuesday but you don't see him until next Monday? That's a 6-day gap where nothing has been changed, improved, or moved in the right direction. I mean, if that's the pace of progression you want, then go for it, but you will fall behind. You need to train in season 2 times a week with the focus on peak power expression and mobility. You need to have bi-daily sessions with your mental performance coach going through the plan and system you guys made during the preseason stage. At the end of the day, I just gave you a lot of information and honestly just gave you a full blueprint. But if you decide not to take action, then that's on you, man, and you don't have to. At the end of the day, dude, I just gave you a full blueprint and a lot of information on how to actually transfer out there on the field. But if you decide not to take action, then that's on you. And you don't have the right to say nothing is transferring. Now, if you want to take action and you also want help, then that's a different story. After all, that's literally what I do, and it's why I made the Close the Gap protocol. We take our athletes through every single thing I just went over for them. And this is where prime development comes in. This is our first pillar in the Close the Gap protocol. I built this because in high school, dude, I trained like a bodybuilder and I didn't have any periodization and I thought it would be enough. And if you know anything about how MLB players train, there's a reason they look like Chris Sale, right? And not Chris Bumstead. That's because baseball has unique training modalities and methods. The problem is figuring out what to do is both confusing and time consuming. However, that means if you do it right and you have a proper weight room approach, it can be one of the most important tools to improve metrics and get you in front of college coaches. But more importantly, it'll make you stand out that much more in front of your competitors. So I set up a brand new training plan for my athletes and I analyze their lowest hanging fruit. Then I stair-step their progressions. Prime development is done for you through the Kelly Training app, using the triphasic training approach, and it's definitely not generic bodybuilding advice. And that leads me to the next step, which is what I call Major League Launch, and it's how you can identify your limiters and attack your swing with structure as well. If your swing is weak and your biomechanics are off, then nothing else really matters and the whole thing just collapses. But when you launch each component correctly, and I like to separate them into 3 different components: backside mechanics, bat path, and bat speed, you not only showcase an effective swing, but one that is ready to be powerful, fast, and explosive. Major League Launch is what separates you from the thousands of ball players guessing through their mechanics. And finally is the standard separator with Coach Ross, our certified mental performance coach. Listen, man, the only way you're gonna improve your mental game is if you have a system that's built specifically for you, just like the physical, which is why we built the standard separator inside our school website, where every athlete inside the Close the Gap protocol has access to 12 unique mental training modules, all with take-home and applicable assignments specific to you and your journey. You can see how this has affected our athletes like Liam, who pretty much started with 0 confidence inside of our program. You can go ahead and read this little text clip from him, to manifesting one of the best seasons in his school's history and definitely the best season he's ever played, You know, he's broke the hit record, he broke the RBI record, and he essentially manifested this through our mental performance training. So it definitely works, and it's definitely something you need to focus on as well. And you will have, 24/7 text communication with Coach Ross and one-on-one calls at any time with him. Coach Ross has 4 years of college baseball experience at Huntington University and Wisconsin Whitewater. He's also mental performance mastery certified through Brian Cain. So clearly, the Close the Gap protocol works time and time again, and you can see it with all of our results that we have with our athletes right here. Casey's up +9 EV, Sean is up +10, Rylan is up 15, Jackson finally hit his goal of hitting 90, and we're also able to change our athletes' lives. I mean, that's really what we do this thing for. You can go ahead and read what Liam sent me right there. So clearly this stuff works, and if you're interested, you can go ahead and apply for the Close the Gap protocol. We are taking a few more athletes this month, so go ahead and click the link in the description to apply. Fill out that whole application and then schedule a call with me. We'll hop on a call, we'll see if it's a good fit. If not, no worries at all, man. And I hope ultimately you got a lot of information out of this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.